Hello and welcome back to the Bears and Lions podcast. I'm Kyle Vaught. About a week and a half ago, I started getting that feeling like, you're about to get sick. And you know the feeling. I'm sure you've experienced it as well. Like that scratchiness in the back of your throat and the sinus pressure. It might be back here, right? You feel the sinus. It's not quite in your face, but you can tell that there's sinus pressure building up and you're like, it's gonna happen. And I try to live as healthy as possible, right? I pride myself on sleep. I love my sleep. I try to sleep well, drink water, eat healthy, try to keep a healthy immune system. But even I know that a couple times a year, everything will just naturally wear down and you'll kind of break down and then get sick. And it's like a mental and physical reset. And so I understand it. And like any normal person, once I started feeling like I was going to get sick, I started loading up on medication, was like, all right, here we go. Vitamin C, all the normal stuff that you would naturally do. This one was a little different because day one was like a speed run through the feeling sick to getting sick. And I could tell it was like ramping up. I was like, this is ramping up a lot quicker than I remember. And by day two, it was like somebody took the volume from 5 and turned it up to 100. And although normally when I get sick, it's like a severe cold or a little cold that lasts 24 hours, maybe a little bit longer. This one turned into the full-on flu, and I was out for like 2 days. I took a couple days off work because I was dying. And this one was hard, and you can actually probably still hear it in my voice. I can feel it still. There's like congestion that I'm dealing with and sinus congestion that is happening. You can probably hear it. I can feel it when I talk. I'm not quite 100%. And it's unfortunate because I feel like where I'm at in life and where I'm at in this season has been just really unique. I've been super blessed. I love my job. I feel like my job has been clicking where I've been able to do a really good job at work. And it's been really fun for me to learn the new things about it and experience it. And then also in life, my personal life, friends I'm making, the community that I'm building in Baltimore has been just absolutely phenomenal. Friends and all sorts of stuff that's going on in my personal life. And then on the spiritual side, I feel like my walk with Christ has been just amplified and reignited in different ways that I didn't realize could even take place. And it's just been so much fun. And then I got sick and I feel like I was benched from life because here I am. It's fourth quarter at work. I've been contributing to the team and now I'm out and I'm taking a couple days off in the fourth quarter, kind of like a basketball player who's taken out in the fourth quarter. Like what? That's when we need you out there to be able to help contribute when the game is on the line. But I just feel like I was benched and I had to sit there and think about it for a while. And like any overthinker, I really started allowing myself to think a couple of interesting thoughts, and God taught me some really cool things through this process. So I want to talk to you about when you feel like you've been benched in life. Maybe you are somebody who is on a trajectory to do something awesome and incredible, and then you got sick. Maybe you had an accident, or maybe you feel like you were just sidelined and you didn't really get to pursue your dream all the way through because of circumstances or things that have happened. I think that all of us have felt this way before, and especially the sickness piece where you can tell it's about to happen. Like that scratchiness is here. You have signs that, hey, this is going to be a real deal. So I think it's important that we have this conversation because wherever you are in life, there's a high probability that you have either already experienced this before, are experiencing it right now, or will experience it in the near future in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's you got sick out of nowhere, or you were left off of a work project at work with your team and you feel like you were benched, or maybe you were in a long-term relationship and that person decided that they don't want to date you anymore, or they don't want to be married to you anymore. And so you've gone through a divorce or you've gone through a really rough breakup and it feels like you were benched. You don't get to be in the relationship game with them anymore, right? In a way, that's a benching. And if I've learned anything, it's those are the moments where we get most exhausted, right? When we get sick, even the healthy people, right? And I loosely put myself in there because I know I'm not super healthy, but even the healthy people naturally will break down and their bodies will get sick eventually, right? They'll naturally break down the barriers or the healthy immune systems, or the immune systems won't be utilized enough in certain areas where they will find, viruses will find ways of, okay, this is the person we're going to attach ourselves and they're going to get sick. And if I've learned anything, these are the moments where when pure exhaustion takes over, when you are just absolutely left to the littlest part of who you are as a human, where you're just so exhausted that you're just hanging on by a thread. These are the moments that all stress and all anxiety that you're experiencing will amplify. Like somebody will just crank the volume to 100, and everything that you are worried about, your insecurities, your fears, the pressures of life, the depressing thoughts that are there, they'll amplify and become larger. I like to consider it like looking at your problems through binoculars, where they feel so much bigger and they look so much bigger and so much closer and so much more dangerous than they actually are. When in reality, they're not as close. They're not as big. They're not as dangerous or as in the vicinity, right? When you're looking at binoculars, you're looking at stuff that's farther away, but it looks closer. And when you finally look at it through the correct lens, and you see, oh, this isn't as big of a deal because it's not as big as I thought it was, right? It's actually way farther than I thought it would be, way less dangerous than I thought it would be. And it's not something that I need to focus on primarily. And I think we've all experienced this, and especially this last week when I was sick, I started getting these thoughts of stress, anxiety, and the pressures of the world, where I started thinking, hey, I am sick and there's nothing I can do about it. Why am I overthinking this? Why am I stressing about something that I have zero control over? And how am I going to respond? And this is where it's difficult, because I feel like we want to pursue life and we want to be gung-ho about it. And we live in this world of social media influencers and people who tell us, here's the best way to do things. And you've got to lock in and you've got to do stuff. And I'll even say that I'm guilty of it as well. Although I try to be as transparent as possible about what I'm going through. And hopefully whatever I'm going through will encourage you in your pursuit of your dreams and your passions, on your journey to your destinations. But I'll even say it, like, I am one of those people who I want to be gung-ho. I want to be the David Goggins who just breaks through and goes and goes and goes, and the consistency and the discipline and all of the good quotes that you can think of become a part of who I am, so that I'm known as somebody who's trustworthy and somebody who's consistent and somebody who has done something worthwhile. But at the end of the day, is that really what I need to do? And here I am laying on my couch, just completely dying with the flu, thinking, man, I'm a failure. Like, look at me. I'm sick, and I pride myself on good sleep, and I pride myself on working out and being healthy. But here I am, unable to contribute to my team, unable to be a functioning member of society. I've this awesome men's group that I love being a part of, and I get sick and I missed the last week with them. And it was really frustrating because they're all my friends now. You know, they're close people who I want to be there for and I want to be there with. And I just started amplifying that stress and the anxiety of what I thought I was. And I share this because in the midst of all of that, God actually did some really cool, encouraging things. There's a story in the Old Testament that I've shared it before, actually, on this podcast, and it came back to me in the midst of this darkness and in the midst of this benching, where I felt like I was benched, like I wasn't able to be a part of the team, and I was just sick and overwhelming myself with anxiety and depression and stress. And there's this beautiful story in the Old Testament. And the reason why it's such an encouragement is it shows this very unique perspective of how God handles us when we are exhausted. So I just want to read it to you really quick. And this is 1 Kings 19, 1 through 8. And the beauty of this is about the prophet Elijah. Now, Elijah was this incredible prophet in the Old Testament. And the chapter prior to this, Elijah is put into this arena, essentially, the situation where false gods and false prophets are belittling the one true God of Yahweh and the Hebrew God Yahweh. And Elijah is a prophet of Yahweh and is like, look, guys, like, you are not talking about Yahweh this way. And if that's the case, then let's have a contest. If your God or gods will bring fire from heaven and burn up your altar, then your gods are real. But if my God, Yahweh, does it, then my gods are real. And they all agree. The prophets agree. They're like, okay, this is great. This is a mano, God v. God battle here. So the prophets of Baal, the false gods, they start cutting themselves and chanting and praying that Baal will consume their altar with fire and to no avail. And so Elijah gets to be a part of this really unique situation where he says, okay, God's told me that this is real, this is happening. So he says, let's douse both your altar and my altar with water. And then he calls fire down from heaven, and God engulfs everything on fire. And in the process of that, the false prophets are put to death because they're belittling Yahweh, and it's becoming an issue in the country of Israel at the time. So they're put to death, and this is a false God. We need to follow the one true God. Everybody's like, yeah, clearly, the God v. God battle, Yahweh wins. So Elijah has just experienced this, and I know that's like a long prequel to this reading, but Elijah has just experienced this mountaintop. He's experienced fourth quarter, hitting the three. It's the dagger that's going to win the game. They're up by 4 or whatever it is. They're going into the fourth quarter or finishing out the fourth quarter, and then he benches himself. And I'll start this reading. This is 1 Kings 19:1. It says, now Ahab told Jezebel everything Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, may the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them, right? I'm going to kill you, essentially, is what Jezebel is saying. And Jezebel, just by the name, the reason why we call people Jezebel is because of this biblical person, Jezebel. But it goes on. It says in verse 3, Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there. While he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, he came to a broom bush and sat under it and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. We're going to pause right there. This is what I'm talking about, is when you are so exhausted and you may experience a mountaintop like Elijah, you may experience all the good, all the excitement. God called fire down from heaven and burnt everything in front of him. And you would think, oh my gosh, like if I saw something like that, I would never need faith again. I would never need to stress or worry. I would believe. However, it's right after that Elijah goes through a crisis and takes himself out of the game and is benched in a way. And is just so exhausted from everything that he runs away and then sits under a broom bush and says, God, just kill me. Like, I'm tired. I'm done. I don't have anything left. The amplified stress, the amplified anxiety from the exhaustion is overwhelming Elijah at this point. He just says, I'm no better than my ancestors. Just take my life. Kill me now. Like, get it done. Which is really funny because Elijah is running away from Jezebel because Jezebel is going to kill him. So he runs away from Jezebel and then says, God, you kill me. Don't let Jezebel kill me. You be the one that kills me, which I find interesting. We're going to go back to verse 5 here. Then he lay down under a bush and he fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. So essentially, Luke from the Outdoor Boys made him some bread with honey butter and water, and he woke up, ate it, drank it, and then laid back down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up, ate, and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. The reason why this story is so impactful and so powerful is that everything about us, we want to do the gung-ho thing, right? We live in a social media world where the influencers and the online coaches will stress us out so much. And sometimes I forget that God is not David Goggins who's going to yell at me to carry the boats. He's not going to tell me to do a cold plunge or a red light sauna in the morning to clear my head and to be the most successful person in the day. No, God makes it a lot more simple. He simply says, eat and sleep. For your journey is too much for you when you don't do that. And I find it so powerful that we get to experience life and are under this weird ability that our bodies are even designed to say, you're breaking down. It's time that you're benched. You need to eat and you need to sleep, because if you don't, the journey is too much for you. The amount of times where I have crashed and burned and the exhaustion has become a catalyst for stress and anxiety to overwhelm my mind, to make bad decisions, poor decisions, stressful decisions that have been made in the moments where I am compromised emotionally, compromised physically, compromised mentally. I can't think straight. And so I make this decision irrationally. And then I make this decision and it's a mistake. And then I get upset because I didn't want to make that mistake, but I was so exhausted I couldn't make the right choice. I couldn't even see the right path. I'm so exhausted. If you are in life right now, no matter where you are, whether you're in a transitional period where you're switching jobs, or maybe you're in a position where you have been working for a long time and you just haven't had that promotion. Maybe you've been working and you've lost really close friends who have gone and got different jobs. Maybe you've been in school and now you're graduating and you're about to go off into the world and start your own adventure, and you're a little bit stressed and you've been putting in a ton of effort. You've been doing the best you can, but you can feel it in the back of your throat, that scratchiness. You can feel that sinus pressure where you just know, it's coming. I'm going to get sick. I'm going to break down. It's going to happen. God isn't looking for you to be David Goggins, where you just press through and tear up your ligaments and crush your feet to the point where they're just broken and hurting and useless in some way, shape, or form. No, God is wanting you to eat and sleep, for the journey is too much for you. There are so many of us that the journey is too much for us. I'll be the first to say it. The journey is too much for me. And a couple times a year, I get sick. And I had this overwhelming thought the other week when I was sick, is how incredible is it that I get to serve a God who designs our bodies to get sick? To say, nope, you're done. How incredible it is to have a God like a basketball coach who understands load management and says, you need to rest. So if you're not going to choose it, I'm pulling you from the game. Your body will pull you from the game, and you need to rest. Because maybe it's not a physical rest. Maybe it's that I was so worked up and so excited, and I had been on this mountaintop with all the things that are going on around me with life and personal and everything else. And boom, God's like, you need to rest, eat, sleep. So I did for a couple days. I just ate and slept because the journey was too much for me. And I can promise you, there's going to be moments in your life where the journey is too much for you. Do not forget that you need to eat and you need to sleep. Because when you do that with intentionality, with the understanding of who God is and how he's working in your life, he needs you to have your strength. He wants you to have your strength. He wants you to rest so that you will be strengthened by the food you eat and by the sleep you get, because the journey is too much for us otherwise. I think it's fascinating because it says it happened the first time, right? All at once, an angel touched him and said, "Get up and eat." He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank and lay down again. So that's the first time. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." So he got up and ate and drank, strengthened by that food 2 times. That's it. He traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. You don't have to have a lot. It doesn't have to be weeks of meal preps at a time, and it doesn't have to be this complicated decision of, I want my life to look a certain way, and so I'm not going to do anything until I can make my life look a certain way. It just needs to be simple. And it doesn't need to be a lot. 2 times, that's it. The angel said, "Eat and drink." He ate and drank and went back to bed. And the angel said, "Eat and drink" again. He ate and drank, and then he went to work. He went back and did what he needed to do. And he traveled 40 days and 40 nights on that strength. Imagine what you could do in 40 days and 40 nights if you took care of your body. If you took care of your mind, you took care of your soul and said, you know what, I'm not going to stress over this. I'm starting to amplify. I can feel it, that scratchiness in my throat. I'm not going to let the exhaustion amplify my problems. I'm going to wait to make that decision. Instead, I'm going to pray about it, and I'm going to rest in who he is. So wherever you are, I would encourage you. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. If you're wherever you are, close your eyes. And I'm just going to lead you in a little meditation of some verses that have been really encouraging to me, and that I hope that you'll hold on to. If there's a moment in your life where you're like, you know what, I need to decompress really quick because the stress and anxiety of my life is starting to amplify, and I'm looking at my problems through binoculars instead of just understanding that they're not that big. So whichever verse sticks out to you, whatever part of any verse sticks out to you, just hang on to it. Write it down if you want to write it down. Go back and re-listen to it. I have verses on little cards that I've been memorizing, and then I have some that I keep on my desk at work just so that it's a reminder of why I am so grateful for it. And it changes my mindset where I'm not amplifying my problems. I'm looking at them through a lens of how great and how beautiful and how wonderful God is. And because of that, makes the problems just feel smaller. Even if they're really big, they still feel way smaller when you have a backdrop of a very, very big and a very good God. Psalms 3, 4-5 says, "I call out to the Lord, and he answers me from his holy mountain. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me." I've mentioned this one before, but I absolutely adore Psalm 91, who says, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. I absolutely love that. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. In Matthew 11:28-30, this is Jesus talking. It says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." I can go on and on and on and on, verse after verse. And I encourage you to look up verses, ChatGPT. Hey, I need a verse about rest. I need a verse about stress. I need a verse about this. And read through scripture of what God says about it. Because when I read through the story of Elijah, I'm reminded God's not going to treat me like an Instagram influencer or an online coach. He's not going to yell at me. He's not going to scream at me. He's going to simplify it and say, hey, eat and sleep, for this journey is too much for you. But I will sustain you. I have made you. I will carry you. I will sustain you. And I will rescue you. Which is Isaiah 46:4. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for an incredible year. We're gearing up for 2026, and I am committing to posting more and editing down, clips more and building the community up a little bit more. So keep me accountable to that. If I'm not doing that, post on my social media and be like, hey, look at this bum. I need it though. I want to continue to grow. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you who listen and are encouraged. I hope that it encourages you. It's not that I have all the answers. It's not that I think that I know everything. I know little, but I will share what I'm going through and the thoughts that I have, because I refuse to believe that I'm the only one who goes through this. And I refuse to believe that my story is not worthy of being told. I think there's power in telling the story, and there's power in being authentic and real with people, because it allows them to connect and say, I've thought that, or I've been through that, or I understand what you're talking about because I'm also going through this. And I hope that together we can walk through, be revealed by the Holy Spirit and understand things through Christ and through my relationship with Christ. And whether you have a belief in God or not, that's completely okay. You are still welcome here. I hope that I will continue and always be able to share with grace and love and truth to encourage you as well, wherever you are in life. You're so welcome. You're so beautiful, and you're so awesome to be a part of this community as well. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that all of you have a wonderful rest of your week. Christmas is right around the corner, and I'm so excited. Have a wonderful week. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.